Your brain was not designed for infinite content. Think about the last time you sat in a complete silence. Without phone, no music, no podcast, no YouTube, no TikTok, Instagram, anything. Just you. How long did it last? Try to remember. For most people, it was maybe 20, maybe 30 seconds before the urge hit. The pull toward the phone, toward notification, toward anything. That urge, that's not a personality flaw, that's not laziness, that's your brain. A 300,000-year-old organ trying to survive inside a world it was never built for. Today, we are going to go deep into what's actually happening inside your brain when you scroll, why it's happening, and more importantly, what to do about it. So, this isn't another put your phone down video. This is the neuroscience. This is real. First of all, the problem. Let's start with some numbers because numbers have a way of making things real. So, the first one, the average person spends 6 to 7 hours per day looking at screens, even more time they can spend. So, secondly, we unlock our phones 58 times per day on average. 58 times. The average attention span when reading digital content was dropped to 8 seconds. A goldfish is 9. TikTok's average video lengths 15 to 60 seconds. Instagram Reels, same. Our content is getting shorter and our tolerance for depth is disappearing with it. Now, here's the question no one is asking. What is this actually doing to the brain? Infinite scroll was designed. Here's something that I want you to sit with. The infinite scroll, that thing where you swipe and content never ends, was invented in 2006 by a designer named Asa Raskin. He designed it in one night. Years later, he said, I'm paraphrasing, I didn't think about the consequences. We created the slot machine in everyone's pocket. Slot machines. That comparison is not accidental. It is not a metaphor. It is the actual mechanism. When you pull a lever on a slot machine, you don't know if you'll win. That unpredictability, that random reward is what creates the addiction. Psychologists call it variable reward scheduling. When you scroll your feed, you don't know what you'll see next. Maybe something boring, maybe something that makes you laugh, maybe something that makes you angry. That unpredictability is the hook. Your brain cannot resist it. So, this is not your fault. You are not weak, you are human, and your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do: seek novelty and reward. So, what's actually happening right now? Right now, today, 2026, roughly 6 billion people are using social media, right? That's more than half of all human on earth. Every one of those people has a brain that is being systematically rewired, not by accident, but by design, Algorithms built by some of the most brilliant engineers in human history optimize it for one thing: keeping your attention. And the brain, your brain, doesn't stand a chance without understanding what it's up against. So, the neuroscience. Let's talk about dopamine because I think most people understand this word, but not what it actually does. Dopamine is not a pleasure chemical, it's the popular version. The accurate version is that dopamine is a prediction and a reward signal. It fires when you anticipate something good, not just when you get it. Here's what that means for your phone. When you see a notification, dopamine fires. When you haven't checked your phone in an hour and you think maybe someone messaged me, dopamine fires. The anticipation itself is the drug. And here's where it gets darker. When you receive a reward consistently, like every single time, dopamine eventually stops responding. Your brain adapts, it gets bored. But when the reward is unpredictable, sometimes yes, sometimes no, dopamine goes into overdrive. It becomes obsessive. This is the exact mechanism behind the gambling addiction. And it is the exact mechanism behind scrolling. A 2021 study published in Nature Neuroscience found that unpredictable rewards activate the dopamine system up to 3 times more powerfully than predictable ones. The default mode network, the disappearing self. So, there is a network your brain called the default mood network, the DMN. It activates when you are doing nothing, when you are daydreaming, when you are staring out of a window, when you are in a shower and suddenly an idea appears from nowhere. So, the DMN, default mood network, is where your sense of self lives, where you process emotions, where you make meaning of your life, where creativity is born. Neuroscientists once thought the DMN was just the brain idling wasted energy. They were wrong. The DMN is one of the most metabolically expensive systems in your brain. It consumes enormous energy because it is doing something essential, it is constructing who you are. And here's the crisis. Every time you reach for your phone the moment boredom appears, you are interrupting the DMN. You are preventing your brain from doing this deep, essential processing. The researchers Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert at Harvard found in a landmark study of 250,000 people across 83 countries that the human mind wanders 47% of the time. Nearly half our lives, we are not in the present moment. And critically, when the mind wanders to positive, self generated thoughts, people report being happier, but when the mind is constantly redirected by external stimulation, by content, by notification, that self generated processing never happens. We are outsourcing our inner lives to an algorithm. Let's talk about memory because this one surprised me when I first encountered it. In the 1920s, a Russian psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik noticed something odd. Waiters in a cafe could perfectly remember the details of open, unpaid orders. The moment a bill was settled, they forgot everything almost instantly. This because known as the Zeigarnik Effect. The brain holds on to unfinished things. Incomplete loops create cognitive tension, and the brain keeps the loop open, consuming working memory until it's resolved. Now think about what a social media feed does. It is an endless series of open loops, a video that cuts off, a headline with no conclusion, a comment section you didn't finish reading, story that ended before the resolution. Every one of those is an open loop occupying mental RAM. Your working memory, which is already limited, is being flooded with unresolved narrative fragments. And because the feed is infinite, the loops never close. This is why you can scroll for an hour and feel mentally exhausted, but like you've accomplished nothing. Because cognitively you've done enormous work, your brain has been processing, buffering, storing, and abandoning thousands of fragments. A Microsoft Canada study found that since 2000s, the year mobile internet exploded, the average sustained attention span dropped from 20 seconds to 8 seconds. The cortisol connection. So, there's one more biological system we need to talk about. It is cortisol, the stress hormone. Your brain treats information overload as a threat when there is too much input, too many stimuli, too much noise, and amygdala triggers a low grade stress response. Cortisol begins to release. Now, here's the cruel irony. Cortisol also makes you seek more stimulation. It creates a state of hypervigilance, the feeling that you might be missing something important, which makes you check your phone more, which floods you with more stimulation, which raises cortisol further. This is a psychological loop, not a character flaw, not a lack of willpower, biological feedback mechanism that modern technology has learned to exploit perfectly. So, researchers at the University of California found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain focus after a single digital interruption. 23 minutes per interruption. Why this is an identity crisis? I want to step back from the neuroscience for a moment because I think the real issue is deeper than dopamine. There is a philosopher named Byung-Chul Han, South Korean, now based in Germany. He wrote a book called The Burnout Society, and in it he makes a claim that I think is one of the most important observations of our time. He says, we are drowning not in oppression, but in positivity, not in restriction, but in options, not in what we are forbidden to consume, but in the infinite, frictionless abundance of what we can. We are not tired because we are working too hard. We are tired because we cannot stop. Because everything is available, everything is stimulating, everything demands our attention, and we have no practice, none in saying no to it. And here's what that does to your sense of self. Who are you when there is no silence? When every moment of potential reflection is immediately filled with content, when every emotion is interrupted before it can be fully felt, the answer for many people is they don't know. They don't know what they think because they haven't sat with a thought long enough to develop it. They don't know what they feel because feelings are uncomfortable and the discomfort triggers the phone They don't know what they want because wanting requires quiet, and the quiet has become unbearable. The infinite content machine is not just affecting your attention span, it's affecting your ability to know yourself. And I think that's the real crisis. Not that we are distracted, but that we are becoming strangers to our own interior lives. What actually works? The principle protect the DMN. Okay, I think we've spent a lot of time understanding the problem. Now, let's talk about what we actually do. The organizing principle I use is this: protect the default mode network. Give your brain the unstructured time it needs to process, integrate, and create. Everything else flows from that. Here's what that looks like in practice. First, boredom is not a problem to solve, it is data. When you feel the urge to reach for your phone, pause for 10 seconds. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Boredom, anxiety, loneliness? That feeling is information. It is your brain trying to tell you something. Let it speak. This is not meditation, so meditation helps. This is just attention, paying attention to your own attention. Second, single tasking is a cognitive superpower. The myth of multitasking has been thoroughly dismantled by neuroscience. What we call multitasking is actually rapid task switching, and every switch costs us cognitive energy and the time. The prefrontal cortex, the most evolutionary, recent, most distinctly human part of your brain, is built for deep sequential focus. Honor that. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman talks about a concept called visual focus. The idea that when you narrow your visual field and focus on a single object, your brain enters a state of heightened alert and concentration. This is why walking in nature, where your gaze naturally moves, helps reset focus in a way that a screen never can. Third, consume less, create more. Consumption is passive, creation is active. When you consume, your brain is reacting. When you create, even something small, even a journal entry, even a conversation, your brain is building, constructing, integrating. The DMN activates strongly during creative acts. Writing, drawing, cooking, building, these are not luxuries, they are neurological necessities. Fourth, design your environment before you need willpower. So, willpower is a finite resource. This is well established in the literature, despite some debates around the specifics. What is not debated is that friction works. If your phone is in another room, you will check it less. If your bookshelf is visible and your phone is in a drawer, you will read more. Design the environment first. Use willpower as a last resort, not a first line of defense. Fifth, reclaim analog time. There is something neurologically distinct about the reading on paper versus a screen. Eye tracking studies showed that we read paper linearly, beginning to end, and screens in an F pattern. skimming, scanning, rarely finishing. The deep reading that happens on paper, slow, immersive, contextual, activates brain networks that screen reading simply does not. The same is true for handwriting versus typing. The physical act of forming letters activates memory consolidation pathways in a way that a keyboard doesn't. These are not nostalgic preferences, they are biological realities. The daily architecture. So, let me give you a simple architecture for a day that works with your neurology, not against it. Morning, no screens for the first 30 to 60 minutes. Your brain is hypnagogic state just after waking, highly receptive and creative. This is when the DMN is most active. Guarded. So, morning, set a single most important task for the day. One, not five, just one. Work. Do that task first is one uninterrupted block. No notifications, no music with lyrics, no open browser tabs, just the task. Midday, take a real break, walk, eat without a screen, allow genuine mind wandering. Evening, a designated wind down, no content consumption in the final hour before sleep. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin and delays sleep onset by 60 to 90 minutes. Your sleep architecture determines next day cognition. Protect it. None of this requires extraordinary willpower. It requires design. Decide in advance, then execute. I want to end with something I think about often. The most radical act in the attention economy is to think slowly, not to think faster, not to consume more efficiently, not to optimize your scroll time, but to slow down, to let thoughts develop, to sit with discomfort long enough that it becomes understanding. Your brain was shaped over 300,000 years of evolution. It is extraordinary. It can hold the works of Shakespeare and the equations of Einstein. It can feel love and grief. It can build cathedrals and compose symphonies and imagine futures that do not yet exist. It was not designed for infinite content, but it was designed for something far more interesting, depths. And the depths is still available to you every single day. It's just waiting behind the silence you've been afraid to sit in. If this video made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on the neuroscience of attention, focus, and learning, subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is for. Take care of your mind. It's the only one you have.